back. Sabi and longtime WNST blogger, insider, reporter. He was with the Terps over the weekend. He was watching the Orioles over the weekend, and he will be monitoring all things Ravens this week. We're here to talk some Ravens and some Orioles with Luke Jones, our WNST insider. You can follow him at Baltimore Luke out on Twitter, and, of course, reach him, Luke, at WNST.net. Luke, you're going to be pretty busy on this text service here this week, brought to you by Coons Ford Security Boulevard. There's no way we're going to get through the end of the week without at least multiple texts and things happening. I mean, it's been really, really quiet, almost painfully quiet, right down to John Harbaugh's press conference last week out in Indianapolis, but it's not going to be quiet this week.
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be changes. There are likely going to be a lot of changes, and some of them, quite frankly, going to be painful changes, the way it's going. I mean, when you have Brandon Williams and Rick Wagner and Kyle Juszczyk, who, a couple days prior to the start of free agency, they're, no contract, no word of anything being imminent. And when you get to this point, if you're a player, how do you not test the market at least a little bit, even if you go back to the Ravens and say, okay, I want to stay here. But beyond that, I mean, the Ravens haven't made any salary cap cuts to this point. As we start the first, I guess not full week of free agency, but free agency begins officially Thursday. The negotiating window is Tuesday afternoon. We'll hear about deals around the league that are not official but are all but completed over the next 72 hours or so as we get into then the official signing period. So you're just waiting. And I think when you look at where this organization is right now, with very much there being a perception of playoffs or else for John Harbaugh, whether Steve Bisciotti feels that way or not, we don't exactly know. But clearly a lot of pressure on Harbaugh, clearly a lot of pressure on Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta. And the fact that this Ravens team has only made the playoffs once in Super Bowl 47, this is going to be a really defining week, one way or the other. Do they make more changes? Do they make a lot of cap-related cuts to clear more space and not necessarily blow it up per se, but to make a little more of a dynamic change? Or do they try to keep it together a little bit more and tweak? Say, kind of similar to what they did last year, where there were a couple changes here and there, but not anything dramatic. I think that's going to go a long way in kind of telling the story of the rest of the John Harbaugh era, the rest of the Joe Flacco era, maybe the rest of the Ozzie Newsome era. Who knows? I really see this as being a very pivotal week as far as what direction this organization's going. Do they make more changes, or are there fewer changes? One thing we can guarantee, there will be some changes, because we say it all the time, NFL not for long, whether it's free agents departing or the Ravens waving bye-bye to veterans with high cap figures. I think we're going to see quite a few here over the next few days.
So I want to apologize to the audience, that you and I keep around here, our friends and family, for putting up with us last week and not going to Indianapolis, and to all the NFL media folks who got a reprieve from us last week. I called a rare audible last minute and just said, I'm not feeling it. New Zealand, Australia, I was jet lagged. It doesn't feel like we missed much, right? I mean, look, I'm going to be going around the league this week and talking to all of our friends, all the usual suspects that we usually see out in Indianapolis, asking about the shrimp cocktail and how the steak's doing at St. Elmo's. But, we took this one off, and I don't know that we're any worse to wear for it. But to your point, it's a huge week, a huge undertaking, and this draft class, as important as any Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta and Joe Ortiz and the others have had in recent years.
It is, and that's and to your first point, unless you were really broken up about not being able to see John Ross run a 4.22 40-yard dash, which was pretty crazy.
I want to see the kid from Alabama get thrown out, too, and I wanted to see this. I figure Scott McLuhan's not there. Why the hell should I go? Right?
Right. But I mean, this is clearly a big draft class. I mean, there's no doubt, just like last year was. I mean, just like they're waiting and hoping that 2015's rookie class provides more of a return than they've gotten through the first 2 years. I mean, it's huge. And It's amazing. I see a lot of fan reaction, and then look, it's all understandable. I'm not being critical when I say this, but I hear so much angst over Brandon Williams and Rick Wagner and Kyle Juszczyk and whether they're going to keep Dennis Pitta or not, and whether they're going to keep Jeremy Zuda or not, and whether they're going to cut Ladarius Webb. And I look at all these names, and I still can't help but feel like they're not getting back to where they want to go until they have some more young guys step forward. And you hope it's Brashad Perriman, you hope Kenneth Dixon, you hope Ronnie
Matt
Stanley
Judon, right? I mean, Zadarius Smith. You can go through the list. Carl Davis. I mean, they got all these guys. Alex Lewis. I mean, they got all these guys. You got to hope somewhere in there there's at least a couple of Pro Bowlers. And I use that term in a, obviously we don't care about the Pro Bowl, but you know what I'm saying. They need to be in that position to be commanding Brandon Williams kind of money.
Yeah, and it's not just those guys, but they need to find more than in April. They need to hit on their first-round pick, whether it's an edge rusher, whether it's a corner, whether it's a wide receiver, whatever it is, they need to find some special players. And look, Hall of Famers, those don't come around very often, but it isn't unreasonable to ask the Ravens to say, hey, you guys haven't been finding a ton of Pro Bowl caliber players here over these last 4 or 5 drafts. And so that's why, as much as the focus this week will be on who they're keeping, who they're re-signing, and what players they're letting go, either as free agents or as cap cuts, I still look at it as, don't be in love with your ingredients too much if the recipe's not adding up. And we know the recipe hasn't added up. So that's where, if they do lose Brandon Williams, look, I'm not trying to dismiss that as being that it's not a big deal. It is. But at the same time, they haven't been winning Super Bowls with Brandon Williams on the roster the last few years. And, Rick Wagner is an above-average right tackle, but do I think he's a future Hall of Famer that they can't possibly survive without him? No. Kyle Juszczyk is a Pro Bowl fullback, but he's a fullback. So, again, I'm not trying to be flippant in talking about some of these players, but that's why I've said, even going back to last year, that I wouldn't be afraid to shake things up a little bit more and try to clear off some cap space, clear some, trim the fat, so to speak, with some older players and get a little bit younger. And if that means there's a higher risk of going 7-9, well, if it means you're setting yourself up better for 2018 and 2019, and I get it, that John Harbaugh might not want to hear that, but then that comes back to what's Steve Bisciotti's expectation for this offseason. Is he truly viewing this as, you guys better be 10-6 next year or else, or is it a case of, I see just like what all of you saw this year, they're 8-8 with a group of older players and guys that are either retiring like Steve Smith or probably not going to be as good or certainly not going to be better than they were last year.
Or moving on like Doomerville, right?
Yeah. Like so it's, and this goes back to the whole, the 8-8 question. Are they 8-8 and moving forward, or 8-8 and trying to kind of resist being pulled backward? And that's where I'm not as enamored with the idea that they absolutely have to keep some of the names we mentioned. And I think they shouldn't be afraid to be a little bit more bold. And certainly they need to get younger, and they need to have as good, as encouraging as the 2016 draft is looking at this point, and that's even not knowing what's going to happen with Correa or Kaufusi, because we frankly didn't see any of Kaufusi, and we saw very little of Kamale Correa. If they can have another draft in line with what they did a year ago, I'm way more excited about the prospects of that than I am of the, by some chance that they're able to keep Rick Wagner or they're able to keep Brandon Williams. Their issues run deeper than just one or two free agents here. They need to, they need an influx of young talent. They need the young talent that they have to continue to step forward. And they need to get their offense back firing on all cylinders. That starts with Joe Flacco at the top and down to the running game, the offensive line, wide receiver, you name it. That's why there isn't a single move that I point to right now, whether it's a cap cut or even re-signing Brandon Williams. Because hypothetically, you could give Brandon Williams a blank check and make him the highest paid nose tackle in the NFL, give him more money than Damon Harrison got last year from the Giants. Then what? You're still not better than you were a year ago. So that goes to my point of not being afraid to shake things up. And if you lose some pieces, so be it. Then look for new pieces. Look for pieces in different spots. Look for better pieces in other positions, and you might find yourself better off in the long run, even if there is some short-term pain here.
He is Luke Jones. He is monitoring all things Ravens. You will get the news first on the WNST text service, all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, we'll be out on Twitter, Facebook. The minute the word breaks, there's going to be plenty of word this week. We're awaiting the Big Ten tournament. Of course, Maryland playing the late game on Friday night. The Caps and the Wizards going out onto the road. And meanwhile, the Mr. Angelos was kind enough on Sunday to grant us 9 innings of Orioles baseball against the Philadelphia Phillies. Mike Wright threw the ball pretty well. Darren O'Day threw the ball pretty well. And by and large, with this World Baseball Classic coming up, I think there's going to be a lot of eyeballs in a lot of places. This is going to be an unusual 10 days for spring training, Luke.
It really is. And, we've talked a lot about the World Baseball Classic. I've said it before. I love the idea of having something like this to celebrate what is such a global game. But the timing of it is far from ideal. I know Buck Showalter is going to have a lot of sleepless nights over these next 10 days, 10 days to 2 weeks until you really get all your pieces back and make sure that Michael Givens is intact and Wellington Castillo is intact and Adam Jones is healthy and Manny Machado is healthy. There's a lot of risk there for teams that are kind of helpless in the process of watching it. But, hey, this is something that MLB, the Players Union, they agreed to. It's something that Major League Baseball is behind at this point. And for just taking it for what it is, I'm looking forward to it. But at the same time, if you're the Orioles, it is an opportunity to get some other guys a little more evaluation time. I wrote about this at the beginning of spring training with Castillo gone. It opens the door for Chance Sisco to get a few more at-bats, a few more opportunities at the major league level, along with, obviously, Caleb Joseph and a guy like a Francisco Pena. But that's how you have to kind of view it if you're a team that's missing some key components and crossing your fingers that the Machados and the Joneses and the Scopes are all going to be fine when they come back later on in March. But in the meantime, if you're the Orioles, plenty of players who are going to be in camp that you're still trying to get back to full health. The good news is, J.J. Hardy has started some baseball activity. Looks like he's on the uptick as far as the back. Chris Tillman had a bullpen session on Sunday, went well. Clearly the next couple days will be the key there as far as how his shoulder responds. Zach Britton is starting to throw again and expects to get back on a full mound later this week and probably some spring games soon thereafter. So,
there's time. It doesn't feel crunchy to me. It still feels very early on now to me.
I mean, Tillman's still a concern. And again, if this were a case where Chris Tillman didn't have the shoulder issue last year, this would still be something where you would say, all right, if he misses one start, misses 2 starts, that's not the end of the world. Hypothetically, even if you lose both those games badly and you get off to a rocky start the first 10 games of the season, you can recover from that. Tillman's a concern because this is something that dates back to the end of last year, and the fact that he came back, pitched okay, velocity was just okay, clearly wasn't 100%, and then in December when he started training again, that this creeped back up. So I think there's going to be some trepidation there. Probably, going into maybe the All-Star break, you hope that, if he has say he misses the first couple starts, gets back on the mound mid to late April, back pitching in the regular season, even if he's going along fine, we're still going to be talking about that shoulder. We're still going to be asking him that and making sure that he's okay physically, at least until June or July. And then, if he's okay then and he's pitching like Chris Tillman, then okay, that's fine. Then all systems go. But as far as Britton and Hardy, the back is nothing new. Quite frankly, it's something that he manages. He's had back spasms before. You hope he doesn't have anything this serious again this season. But J.J. Hardy's 34 years old and entering the final year of his contract, and I think the reality is this isn't exactly surprising. You just hope he's able to hold up. You hope Buck Showalter gives him necessary rest, and you kind of manage him, treat him a little bit like a starting catcher. Maybe the goal for him should be 130, 135 games, and you hope you avoid a trip to the disabled list with him. But those three names, while these other guys are going off to pitch and play in the World Baseball Classic, those guys look like they're all trending upward from a health standpoint. So, really the one that's still a ways away is Michael Bourne with the broken finger. But all good news to report from everything we heard from Sarasota over the weekend with those three guys.
Dude, I got to get acclimated with this schedule for this World Baseball Classic, right? Like, I heard Adam Jones talking about it, and obviously Scope's running off. So I'm trying to get the 4:30 a.m. this and that, and where the Orioles are. It's wacky.
How about Machado's going to play an exhibition game with the Dominican against the Orioles this week? I mean, but it'll be fun. I mean, again, the health thing, you can talk about it all you want. I mean, it's not ideal. I don't love the idea, especially pitchers. I don't like seeing Michael Givens pitching competitively, turned up to, the volumes turned up to 10, as opposed to maybe being at 6 or 7 at this point in the spring. But if, and it's a big if, you get through that part of it, there's some competitiveness to this whole thing with the World Baseball Classic. That it is fun.
Cuba and Japan at 5 a.m. Come on.
And,
you can't beat that.
And I like seeing the Netherlands. I mean, we saw this in the 2013 World Baseball Classic. They went through a run, and that was the first glimpse that many Orioles fans got at Jonathan Scope, who had a nice WBC for them. Of course, him being the Curacao native. So, there is going to be some.
The Dutch play at 4:30 in the morning. If you want to see
I'm not waking up at 4:30 to watch, but I will certainly watch the replay.
What kind of fan are you? You don't like John Scope? What's wrong with you?
I will catch him on the replay later in the morning.
Brew a pot of coffee. It's the World Baseball Classic. It only comes every 4 years, and this one counts, Jones. Come on.
Well, it counts in some way. I mean, but I am, again, putting the complaints are out there. It's not changing. It's not going away, so you might as well enjoy it. Cross your fingers. That's fine. Say a little prayer for all the guys in the orange and black playing in different colors over the next couple weeks. But, if you're a baseball fan, there's something cool about seeing the Dominican Republic and Japan, and hey, maybe the United States can win one of these finally.
Hey, my Venezuelan brothers are involved in this tournament. I'll be busting out the Venezuela shirt before the week's over. Don't worry. I got their schedule. They got Mexico coming up Saturday night. I got a little spot cordoned off to watch that. So
there you go. And in the meantime, we'll be keeping tabs on the Orioles. It's been the injuries have been the biggest headline, but we've seen quietly some guys pitching well. Ubaldo Jimenez has been much better early in the spring than we've seen typically from him. So what that means, probably not a whole lot, but hey, it's what we're talking about right now. I thought Mike Wright pitched well on Sunday, using the two-seam fastball a little bit more.
They're going to need him this year. You watch. Mark my words.
We'll see
Mike Wright will make 14 starts in the big leagues, in my opinion. My humble opinion.
I'm not ready to put a number on starts, but we're going to see him, whether it's in the bullpen, whether it's spot starts because someone gets hurt, or Jimenez struggles that mightily, or Wade Miley struggles that much. I mean, it's inevitable. You're not going to get through a season with 5 starters. It just doesn't happen. Even if you have a great rotation, you're going to have to lean on a couple other guys at some point. And Mike Wright, with outings like what he had on Sunday, again, it's a spring outing. I get it. It's 3 innings. It's not that big of a deal. But it was nice to see him throw the two-seam fastball because he's clearly been a guy who hasn't been able to harness some good velocity. He's got some ability. It's not as though Mike Wright has a bad arm or anything like that. Just it gives him a little bit of a different look. And inducing ground balls, why not use that infield defense that the Orioles have to your advantage? So, we've said it. You can say all you want about Tillman and Gausman and Bundy, and certainly everyone's hoping that they're an above-average starting top 3 in a rotation. And certainly the Orioles need them to be, but you're going to need some other guys to make some contributions, and you hope Ubaldo can have at least a couple stretches where he's pretty good. You hope Miley can do the same, but you're going to need a Mike Wright. You're going to need a Tyler Wilson. You're going to need a whether it's a Vidal Nuno or a Gabe Yanoa or Logan Verrett or Joe Gunkel.
And get to know these guys, by the way.
We're going to see. There's no doubt, because you know how the Orioles operate with their bullpen, and the one advantage that they'll have this year, even though they certainly would have liked to have brought back Vance Worley on a minor league deal, a spring training invite like they were trying to get, and then ultimately the Nationals did it, but he didn't have a minor league option last year. So with these long reliever types, that they're going to be cycling them in and out of Baltimore. That Norfolk train is going to be up and running. And based on the way this rotation looks, I'm guessing those guys are still going to get plenty of work in long relief. How about that?
Okay, fair enough. We'll be watching all week long the Orioles, the World Baseball Classic, as well as the Ravens. And I promise you, the WNST Tech Service will be percolating with Ravens news all week long. It's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. We're just awaiting the word there. Obviously, the Wizards and the Caps are West Coasting. They'll be up late at night. We'll be covering that all week. We have head coach Barry Trotz joining us here in Baltimore on March 20th. It's Monday night. We're going to release the information on that, the whereabouts later on in the week. We're finalizing our details. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry, and for There Goes My Hero. That is Monday, March 20th. Still space on the London trip. You can email me on that, nasty@WNST.net, or you can go to WNST.net and click on the Road Trips tab. All the information is there. We're here to help you with that. And the Big Ten tournament, Maryland's going to get after right around 9 o'clock on Friday night. Probably Northwestern. We'll see who they take on. Could be Ohio State. Could be Rutgers at this point. Who knows? But the Big Ten tournament, big doings all week. Begins Wednesday, all day Thursday, all day Friday, getting into Saturday and Sunday. Big week of sports around here. I'm Nestor. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook Live as well as our YouTube WNS TV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.